Good evening, everyone. Oh, we've got some feedback.
There we go. That was my. Now we got it. One more time.
You're okay now. We're good? Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Otsego City Council meeting. Tonight is Monday, July 22nd. Audra, can you have the record show that our city attorney, city planner, city engineer are present along with all city council members and our assistant city administrator. Absent this evening is our city administrator. At this time, I'll ask you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first item of business this evening is our open forum. This is the portion of the meeting where you can come to the podium and state your name and address and limit comments to 5 minutes or less. Would anyone like to speak at this time? Yes.
Ms. Mayor, council members, my name is Kenny Reisman. My address is 14248 82nd Street Northeast. Purchased this home a little over a year ago. And working on repairs and stuff until this summer. They're working on the outside and come to my attention. Well, I was aware of it last year actually, but the ditches along our property, both on Otsego and 82nd, are very steep and difficult to maintain. I don't know if it'd be impossible to have nice lawn there, but certainly very difficult. Trying to get the lawn into shape. The old folks that lived there before evidently weren't able to rake the leaves and whatever, so it was mostly dirt, but been working on it, reseeding and whatever, so the ditches is part of it. And so far, not really seeing, well, my thought is to decrease the slope of the ditches. So I haven't gone really further than that. And then the second point is on the where our property backs up to the newer neighborhood on the kind of on the north side. And there's a big culvert coming across Otsego. And I think the culvert is right beyond our property line, but it dumps all the water across our backyard, kind of like a little river here an hour ago. Dumps the water between our mound system and our house, just kind of flowing through. So spoke with the engineer here a little bit ago, and I'm asking if the Public Works or someone can address those two concerns of mine.
So you spoke with Ron?
Yes.
Okay, Ron, do you have comments? What is
Yeah,
the feedback we're getting?
It's the plastic on the lights.
Oh, okay. Should we turn those lights off and keep the other?
It's not that good.
No.
Yeah,
for
might
that.
be it.
Let's see.
Okay. Sorry about that.
It's
Kenny.
okay.
Good lighting.
All right, Ron.
Yeah, Kenny and I discussed this prior to the meeting. This is an older section of the city that this development plat went in prior to the city being a city. It was put in with it being a township and under the development jurisdiction of the county. So the slopes have been there ever since this was platted in the 70s. The culvert has also been there. It's been replaced in the last time the projects came through. It was replaced at the same size, same elevation as was previously. I explained that we can take a look at the elevations in the ditch and also look at the elevation of the culvert. Look at elevations of storm sewer that might be nearby than the development platted property to the south, and just see if there's any potential solutions. Just flattening out the slopes of a side slope of a ditch fills the ditch in and causes water to stand. So that is not always the solution, and it's very rarely the solution. That would require fill coming in and then dirt coming out that might be within the property owner, not within the right of way, but within the property. So then we would need some sort of easements. There's the amount of cost that's associated with that, and who pays for that. So there's a lot of items to be reviewed, but we certainly can take a look at the corner and see if there's any potential solutions to this. But again, it's kind of one of those things that's been there for a long time, was there when the property was purchased. It's nothing that's come up that's brand new.
When Kenny talked about it going between his septic, right,
Yes.
and your home,
Yes.
what kind of soil are you? Are you clay or sand out there?
Well, I think it's sandy, but there's black dirt on top,
Okay,
so
because there was a lot of water that came through here, as you said.
it's been a wet season, so I've only recently been trying to grow grass in that area, and I have some coming up, but it's a problem.
Would they have to include something like that when you purchase the house? That, I mean, because are they considering it flooding?
I doubt it.
It was not included.
I'm not like going to chase down anybody, that's in the graveyard or whatever, so.
Sure. All right.
Because the previous owner, one of them passed away, and I think the other one's the nursing home, from what I've heard, so it's whatever it is,
Sure.
But that doesn't mean it's okay today.
So Ron, you will then, do you have Kenny's information?
I have his address and his name. I don't have any
Okay,
other.
I put my phone number on the sign-in list.
okay,
Okay.
perfect.
I can use that.
So Ron, you'll,
Yep, follow up with doing some survey and looking at some as-built from previous projects and determine if there is a solution and maybe what that cost would be, and then we'll have to have discussions from there.
Thanks
thank
for your
you.
time.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, any other comments? Then we will move on to item 2 to consider our agenda for approval. Does anyone have anything that they would like to add or delete at this time?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve the agenda as written.
Second. Motion by Ryan, seconded by Brittany. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next item is our consent agenda. A motion would be in order.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Ryan?
I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second. Motion by Ryan, seconded by Brittany. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item 4.1, Otsego Waterfront District. I will turn this over to our city planner.
Thank you, Mayor. Modern Construction of Minnesota is presenting plans for what was previously known as Mississippi Landings, now Otsego Waterfront District. They previously processed through a concept plan application and then proceeded on with a preliminary plat and PUD development stage plan. Those approvals expired because they didn't record a final plat within a year. So they're essentially bringing us back through the process again for consideration. The application includes a PUD planned unit development stage plan and preliminary plat. We'll also consider the vacation of drainage and utility easements as part of the public hearing that was held by the Planning Commission, but not act upon that until final plat is brought forward. An EAW environmental assessment worksheet was also required for the project in process previously. Findings of that were that an environmental impact statement was not required. Because this is a planned unit development, you're essentially legislating a project-specific zoning district for the development. So this puts the city council in an act where you're creating land use regulation, giving you great discretion as to approval, denial, or conditions that could be imposed as part of the project. The existing conditions for the property, this is located east of Trunk Highway 101, south of 90th Street, just behind and south of the Highway 101 market. The property consists of 3 lots with just under 14 acres in area. 2023 comprehensive plan guides this property for mixed land use development consisting of high-density residential dwellings and commercial uses. The property is zone B3, or excuse me, it's zone PUD district with the same uses allowed within the general business district, but also including multiple family dwelling units. There is also this outlot that exists as part of the property that is subject to the standards of the Wild, Scenic, and Recreational River District, the Environmental Protection District for the Mississippi River, established in accordance with Minnesota rules. As I said, to the north is Highway 101 Market. Further to the north is the Waterfront East development. Also to the south of the development is the Mississippi River Campground RV park that exists and has for many years. The preliminary plat includes one lot and block to be developed with the first phase of what's intended to be a multi-phase development. They're also including a number of outlots, including the Wild and Scenic parcel. There's an outlot B, which is currently within the 100-year floodplain. The developer is working to remove that and then enable that to become part of the development site for future phases. And then there's this parcel to the south across what is a MnDOT controlled drainage way for regional stormwater from Highway 101, as well as the city's outlet for stormwater to the north within the Otsego Waterfront East development. The developer did provide a traffic study with the previous application for preliminary plat approval that demonstrated there is sufficient capacity within the existing Quantrell Avenue and the intersection at Quantrell Avenue and 90th Street to accommodate the development, recognizing that that is the only way in and out of this area, but it is sufficient from a traffic functionality standpoint. The development would also require improvements to the existing sewer lift station that serves this area and the campground to the south, and that would be undertaken as a developer expense. Stormwater management would be largely accomplished within the Mississippi River parcel, as well as the southern portion of Block 1, at least initially. And those were all reviewed by the city engineer and found to be acceptable. The plat provides drainage and utility easements at the perimeter of Lot 1, Block 1 as required by the subdivision ordinance. We'd also look to establish temporary easements over the 3 outlots that would expire upon platting. If the developer moves forward to a final plat application, they do need to enter into a development contract with the city to provide for performance on the public improvements being completed, as well as pay all applicable fees and securities related to the development. The site plan for Lot 1, Block 1 includes a 222,000 square foot principal building that would include 150 apartments, 12,600 square feet of commercial uses, as well as the large public plaza located above the parking structure. The setbacks for the development are basically built to the perimeter of the site to maximize the development of the lot and block, recognizing most of the property is preserved by the Wild and Scenic Protection District. There would be provision made for pedestrian access once the floodplain issue is resolved to provide for that connection up to the trail system within Waterfront East at Carrick's Landing. And then landscaping is shown generally on the site plan, but would need to be finalized as part of the landscape plan submitted with the final plat application. Exterior lighting would also need to be verified to ensure that it complies with the performance standards of the zoning ordinance. Significant discussion with the parking provided on site. Developer provided a number of studies related to the parking demand for the use based on a mixed use development. Those including the requirements of the zoning ordinance to provide 483 stalls, basically looking at the uses straight up for the number required for the number of apartments and the number of stalls required based on the commercial square footage. Looking at a methodology that Wayzata put together to deal with their Lake Street commercial district along Lake Minnetonka that consists of general commercial businesses, restaurants, stores, shops, etc., as well as a number of residential uses. Also includes certain mixed use developments characteristic of what's proposed here. And then an analysis of the Institute of Transportation Engineers for a more urban setting type development, indicating a significantly reduced number of parking stalls. What was shown on the site plan presented by the developer was providing 122 garage stalls, 136 surface stalls, and 30 street parking stalls along Quantrell Avenue for a total of 318 stalls. They'd also provide proof of parking within the lot for 132 stalls. netting 450 total stalls available for the project. What the planning commission came down to is that they were comfortable allowing for a proof of parking agreement, but they wanted to see all 318 stalls constructed within the site. And the developer indicated he was willing to do so. So that has been added as a condition of approval to the findings of fact being presented, considered this evening. The building plans consist of a mix of custom masonry units, brick fascia, and fiber cement. There is a need to increase the percentage of grade A materials to 65% to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance. There also be the option to present alternative materials that provide greater distribution of and variation in the elevation of the structure to meet the intent of the zoning ordinance, which could be considered again with the final plat application. The building height is shown as 7 stories or 83 feet. The planning commission again discussed this issue at length, noting that tallest buildings in Otsego are currently 4 stories, including below grade or at grade parking and then the structure above. The majority of the planning commission was comfortable with the height, and that was the recommendation to move forward. There are 115 apartment units within the building. 60% are 1-bedroom units. One way to look at this is they have a number of units less than the minimum 700 square feet required by the zoning ordinance, but if you take the area of all the 1-bedroom units and average them, they do exceed that on that basis. So the planning commission did recommend though that the adjustment be made to increase the minimum floor area to 700 square feet. Outlot A, which is the wild and scenic parcel adjacent to the Mississippi River, is reserved for future development. The developer has a number of plans and ideas as to how to make that a recreational amenity for not only the development, but the community as a whole. And those would have to be processed as a planned unit development stage plan separately from this project at a future date, primarily once the whole issue of the floodplain is resolved. There'd also be the requirement for a preliminary and final plat to be processed. So knowing that action's deferred until a future date, the recommendation is that the park dedication requirements for this initial phase 1 would be satisfied as a cash fee in lieu of land. The developer provided a number of illustrations and perspectives for their project just to highlight the amenities and the architecture that they're bringing forward as part of the revised plans. The last 2 were not available at the planning commission, so they're available here now for your consideration. City staff is recommending approval of the application based on consistency with the 2023 comprehensive plan. The preliminary plat complies with the requirements of the subdivision ordinance. As far as the PUD district and the requested flexibilities, the major issues being parking requirements and on-street parking, which was addressed by the planning commission. The proposed 7-story building height and the exterior building materials. Again, there's conditions outlined as part of the findings of fact addressing all of these. The planning commission did hold their public hearing on June 3rd. There was one comment as noted in the request for council action pertaining to the project. Otherwise, the planning commission, following their discussion, had voted 7-0 to recommend approval subject to the 21 conditions that are outlined for your consideration.
Thank you. Does the developer wish to comment?
Good evening, Jesse Hartung, Modern Construction, 18837 Ogden Street Northwest, Elk River, Minnesota. Mayor, Council, thanks for considering my application again this evening here. I did want to provide one update though. I think, Dan, I've got 152 garage parking stalls. You had mentioned, I think, a little less than that. So just to make it clear, there is at least 1 garage parking stall for every apartment unit proposed. But other than that, you know, we made a lot of progress since we last brought this project in front of you guys. Some stuff has happened with the waterfront and dealing with the floodway. Just want to give everybody an update. We're at the point right now where we believe that we're comfortable with all the modeling, the floodway. The line for the floodway should be moving back towards the river frontage. So that's a great opportunity to bring all that land back into use for the community at whole, as well as for private development. So that process is a process that we have to do, as talked about before, through FEMA, and very long process. So with the approval of our project tonight, we would move forward with some of the fees involved and get the timeline going on that. But all the preliminary work has been completed on that. So as far as the project goes, it did change the name to Otsego Waterfront District. So we've been working on the marketing aspect of this, and getting ready to launch the website and everything, and just seemed like there was a lot of confusion. There's a lot of other Mississippi Landing, Mississippi Riverfront type projects in the area. Champlin's got one, some stuff up in St. Cloud area. So it just felt like the Otsego Waterfront District was an opportunity to present more of a regional destination that was sort of focused on commerce as well as the park amenities and whatnot. So that's been updated. We are looking forward to launching the website soon and starting to gather a list of people interested in not only becoming residents there, but also commercial businesses. As well as that work, we've completed a full set of architectural plans. So the stuff submitted to you guys now is much more complete. And we did make some changes to that based on feedback from both planning commission and council members. So I know the height was a big consideration last time. So we did reduce the massing of the building quite a bit. So on the 101 side, we've actually taken that down a level, added some rooftop decks for some of those units. So it's not squared off anymore. And then we've also taken the rooftop amenities and lowered those to the 6th floor as well, freeing up the rooftop space for solar panels, but then also requiring or reducing the need for those taller overshaft buildings. So overall, I think we save probably 11 to 12 feet in height, as well as reduce the massing on 101. So it should flow quite a bit better with the area. There was also some safety concerns as well, and by eliminating that extra elevator shaft, we've been able to, reduce our time to exit the building from the highest point as well. So made some considerations in the hopes that we can get everybody on board with the project. We do have a few new renders there showing a concept for or showing some interior concepts that we've done with the design team in regard to the rooftop restaurant, as well as the lobby area there. So we've really fleshed out the design, firmed up all the units and sizes, and we're ready to move forward with the project here with approval tonight from you guys. Other than that, I think I'll just turn it over to any questions I may answer, and appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, council questions for staff or the developer? And I have one in your, do we have 20 listed? You said 21. What am I missing?
I will check.
My Dan's checking. Do other people have other questions or comments?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Ryan.
just really quickly, I know that the EAW process was gone through last year. How long is that good for? Do they have to go through it again?
Mayor, the EAW decision doesn't expire so long as the project stays within the scope that was reviewed.
Okay.
Mayor,
Mhm.
with respect to the conditions, on the findings of fact and decision, there's 21 conditions. In
Okay.
the report, there's 20
20.
conditions, because that's the report that the planning commission had received.
And then they added.
Correct.
What was the one that they added?
So what is, you're gonna need to read us.
Number 7 is the added condition. A minimum 318 off-street parking stalls shall be constructed with the PUD development stage plan with proof of parking for 450 stalls, including on-street stalls.
What we have it here. It's not correct.
What you have for the findings of fact and decision is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
More questions, comments?
Another real quick one, Madam Mayor.
Mhm.
Dan, I think you spoke to this, that there is no landscape plan,
Mayor, that's correct.
but it's required prior to the application of the city council. Is that this application or a future application?
The future application will have that with final plat.
Okay.
Mayor, the one reason staff is comfortable with that is the majority of the development site is impervious surface. The landscaping is more decorative on the plaza, and then it's the future development site within outlots A or outlot B.
And they kind of have somewhat of a design for the plaza, right?
Correct.
And then, real quick, so is outlot B not buildable, at least right now?
Mayor, that's correct. It's within the 100-year floodplain, and actually it's part of the floodway. So you can't build on it. It's needed for flood volume based on past studies. What the developer is doing is a specific engineering study showing the flood needs in that section of the river, and that if that section is filled, it's not going to cause flood damage adjacent to the property, or basically push flood water downstream.
So is it outlot B that's used in the calculations or outlot A,
Both outlot A and outlot B.
even though B isn't buildable?
Correct. Technically, outlot A is not buildable either based on the wild and scenic restrictions. So
Does that include a park?
it could be used for park. So
Okay.
could outlot B.
Can you pull up the map on that?
So outlot A is restricted by the wild and scenic district. Outlot B is restricted. It's outside the wild and scenic, but it is floodway. So there are overlapping regulations that basically limit the use of that property to public parks, pasture, agriculture. Thus, its prior use as a corn maze.
My question is, so when we talked about parking, pull up that, because obviously they had concerns that they not use the on-street parking area.
Right.
So this shows me what now? So he has not sent in revised
This
parking.
is not a revised plan from what was presented to the planning commission. It would need to be revised to show construction of 318 parking stalls on the site. Essentially constructing some of these stalls within the grayed out area.
Madam Mayor.
Mhm.
So when you were here a year ago, we had talked about some of the conditions that would need to be resolved prior to moving forward. We talk about being unique to Otsego, and the 7 stories it's not unique to Otsego. It seems like it's more of a Minneapolis, or, something where it's just maybe a little bit too tall, obviously, when we have certain things. So that still is a concern of mine. I mean, I asked if you saw all the conditions, because this is a big project, and I really think you have some wonderful ideas. But it still continues to be an issue. The parking is an issue. Again, I think what you're doing is we're really trying to be unique to Otsego, but it's just not feeling like it's unique to Otsego, because there's still these conditions that haven't been met. That makes sense, what I'm saying?
Yes, council member. So the conditions were to be addressed at the final plat last time, and we had not gotten to the final plat. And so with the approval, the intention was to bring some of those and resolve some of those during the final plat. We're coming back for preliminary plat and have addressed some of those things that were already approved. And so like the goal with the massing specifically in the height is, I think we're within about 11 or 12 feet now of the next tallest peak in the city, whereas prior to that, we were over 20 feet.
Mhm.
So we did bring that down substantially, as well as staggered it too. So it fits really well with the area. And then parking, we've increased dramatically from where we had it before, as well as gotten some additional parking studies that highlight that, maybe I mean, we're up to 450 stalls. City code, I think, requires 489 or somewhere in that area. So we did get some additional studies to provide that show that 489 may be a bit excessive. And certainly in our opinion, being the wild and scenic area of the river, and just, my own philosophy is, if we can show that we've got adequate parking, why pave paradise, right? I mean, there's a song about that. And so my goal would be that we show and demonstrate, and we've done that. We've done the engineering, we've done all the stormwater calculations, and demonstrated that we can get 450 stalls for phase 1 on site. We're just asking that we do something that is less than that. And then if we need to, we would provide cash bonds or whatever the city would require. So we would intend to meet that requirement as well. But it is very important to me. I live in this community as well. It's super important to me that hopefully everybody enjoys this project and looks forward to this project going forward, which is why even though we had approval last time, 3-2. You know, I said, hey, if we're gonna make some changes and if we're still working on some stuff and we're coming back to you guys, let's try to show and demonstrate that we can really do something that everybody can be proud of. So the massing's changed significantly from where it was prior. So it is important to me that we can hopefully get everybody on board.
And Dan, we need 400 or 420. You said there was room for 450.
450 stalls, correct?
Mhm.
Yep, which is
Mm.
pretty close to the 49 city code requirement. And our parking studies don't account for the rideshare program that we've talked about that we're going to launch, where we have additional cars available for tenants. And the goal for that is that tenants can move in and not need 2 cars, right? So that they have a higher quality of life. They have money that they can spend at the restaurants and at the shops rather than paying insurance, car payments. And so the parking study couldn't really quantify that, but there's also going to be a reduced parking need because of that as well.
And I'm sorry, did it show where the 428 parking stalls were gonna go since we in
Yeah,
these plans?
So we did update the plan since we were here last time. Previously, we had only proposed a couple of 100 stalls.
Yeah.
And we didn't even show the proof of parking or anything. So what we've got now is full engineering studies done where the grayed out area would be future proof of parking. We've also designed what I believe would be a great amenity down there, which is street parking. Certainly down the road as the park gets developed, we have the ability for people to come and park on the street, walk to the park on the trails and have additional overflow parking for that. But yeah, right here accounts for 450 total parking stalls. So both proof of concept as well as installed stalls that we'll put in on day one.
And correct me if I'm wrong, planning commission preferred to have the stalls in on site versus,
So,
because that
yeah.
street is very tight in there.
Mayor, the recommendation from the planning commission is 318 stalls constructed initially within the site. Proof of parking for 450. And staff would support the total number of 450 from the standpoint that the analysis that Wayzata had used to evaluate mixed use development bears out. Our current standard by the zoning ordinance for 483, that's just taking the 2 uses and adding the total stalls together without accounting for the fact that during the day, residents may not be home and businesses will be active at night. It's the opposite.
So we're actually providing more stalls than what they're actually using in Wayzata in Minnesota for a very similar development. So, but yeah, it is all engineered, fully engineered. So where previously when I came in front of you guys, none of that engineering was done. So we know we can do it all. It's all right there. And then in line with the planning commission's recommendation, we would not develop the street parking at this time. And they'd prefer to put all that right on the site,
Mhm.
which we can do. So we just didn't update the drawings because we were waiting to bring to city council, but certainly that would be updated and submitted at final plat.
And then, Madam Mayor, I had one other thing. The floodplain, as Dan showed us on the map or on the slides here. So there's just, I mean, I can take your word for it, but again, I don't know how far you are with the wild preservation and wild district preservation. I'm worried that again, we're putting the horse in front of the the cart in front of the buggy. Is that saying? The cart in front of the horse? The horse. Just because again, what if this is not an option? I mean.
Yeah, so
it-
phase 1, what's in front of you guys for approval tonight
Mhm.
is completely separate from the wild scenic. So if nothing even gets approved with the wild scenic, then it would remain a cornfield as it is existing, or we would improve that in a park manner of some sort. Our goal with moving the floodway is to be able to do grading work in there so that we can actually provide things like amphitheaters, gazebos, trellises. We don't know that that's approved. Now, I'm happy to provide you guys a letter from Stantec Engineering. They're the same engineering firm that's done significant developments, including all of the Maple Grove park stuff there. They've done big stuff in Chicago. So I'm happy to provide a letter stating what we've done and how we've modeled it with FEMA. But there is no guarantee, but this project is not dependent on that, right? So they're 2 separate things. And so if for some reason we can't move that floodway, that does not affect what we're asking for approval on tonight in one bit.
But then down the road, as you mentioned, that there might be a park there.
Mhm.
Who would be constructing the park? I mean, isn't that part of?
Mayor,
Or-
it's his proposal that they would construct the park amenities.
Yeah, and so we do have some park drawings that I've submitted that Stantec has also drawn. Again, that is to show you guys the goal down the road, but that is separate from what we're proposing today. And any park development that would be done there would certainly be done at our cost, and I would think would be an improvement over a cornfield and or an area that floods quite a bit, so.
Madam Mayor, on that point, so we're still taking the cash fee for park dedication. Are we kind of holding it in escrow then, or?
Mayor, the park development, it's intended to be a private facility. Then there may be some public easements over. So that's a matter to be decided in the future as part of that application. So the park dedication fund, the money that's collected for this development would be entirely for the city's use as part of the park system.
And not required just to
Not
use there.
required to be used in this area specifically.
Mayor, I have a
Yes.
question on that. So let's talk parking.
We're all beating around the bush. on that one.
Yeah. So, Dan, maybe if you can explain, I mean, I think I understand the proof of parking. It just seems like a lot on the proof of parking. So what does that actually mean?
Mayor, so they would have to provide a site plan showing that they can provide the 450 stalls as required. City Attorney's Office drafts up a legal instrument that they will agree to construct those stalls if deemed necessary by the city. So if we see traffic congestion, cars being parked on Quantrell, cars being parked at Nathy 101 or the other developments that are causing negative impacts to the public street, the city would initiate the action required to cause them to build those parking stalls. They're also required to put up a security for the cost of the construction so that the money is in hand essentially to require those stalls to be built. The Planning Commission and City Council last discussed a proof of parking arrangement for the Waterfront Commons development where Kennedy Eye Clinic and Little Gym is located. That was for a significantly fewer number of stalls
Very minor.
than what we're talking about here. And again, city staff's recommendation was that the Wayzata study indicated that 429 stalls are needed. So that's the basis for the proof of parking agreement if the council elects to go that direction.
Madam Mayor. Oh,
Yes.
were you gonna?
I was just gonna say, I think 132 for proof of parking is quite a lot.
I would agree. Yeah. Can I piggyback on your comment with this, Ryan, which maybe that's where you're going to, when we see this and it still talks about the 30 on to get to even the 318, that was using the street. So where are those other 30 going in here? I mean,
So it would be out of these 132 stalls, basically.
That they're
You
adding 30
take
more?
this 30 out and put that into the proof of parking stalls and construct 318 within this area. Because you do have the ability to construct. Can't add that fast, but Ron, I believe that's 450 stalls if you put them together less the 30, so then you'd be at 420 within the site.
but then that's still less than the Wayzata model if we're willing to
Mhm.
adopt that.
And a lot less than the zoning ordinance.
Right. What other property do we have in town that we have used a different method or not required them to follow our zoning ordinance?
Mayor, in terms of looking at the Waterfront East development, that was initially evaluated on a cumulative basis between all the properties within the development. Same with the Otsego waterfront. So we didn't reduce the number of stalls constructed, but we required drain or ingress egress easements over across adjoining properties so that, for instance, if Rockwoods was busy one night, people can park across the street at the poor parking lot or the hotel parking lot to the north, so that you accommodate that overflow in that way. You see it in effect basically with their music event on Wednesday nights.
Sure. But if I'm here and all of the orientation to the restaurant and shopping is all to the south end, why would I mean, he's got no cross easement with 101 Market
Right.
or even farther. And as a resident or consumer, I'm probably not gonna walk 2 blocks to go to dinner.
Mm.
Maybe, but maybe not.
Mayor, that's essentially why they have to show the ability to accommodate the 450 stalls within the site. And then they're showing the additional parking that could be considered in the future with the on-street parking.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
with the total stalls being 318, And then Dan, as you mentioned, the road gets congested because there's people shopping and going to dinner and whatnot. What happens if for some reason, and again, not your character, but what if these stalls are not, what if they don't decide to put the additional stalls?
Mayor, then the city enforces its proof of parking agreement and uses the security it's holding to cause those to be constructed.
So the city would have the money. Under no circumstances would the city not have the money in their account, able to hire another contractor if the stalls are needed. And if I may comment, you guys are putting park amenities down there right now. I mean, let's be frank, the place needs more parking. And we want to do something unique for the community. And while I understand the needs for the parking, I think we're gonna need way less parking. I provided a study that shows way less parking. However, we're up to 318 stalls on site with the additional ability to go well over 400 stalls on site, not counting the street parking. So yeah, I would just encourage everybody to consider whether or not, 20 parking stalls is worth losing a project that's going to bring countless tax revenue, countless, shoppers and members to the community. We don't want to choke the business out. Tipsy Chicken gets choked out right now because of our parking. So, and Mayor, your own comment, people won't park, to the south. That's why I like the street parking. It gets people in closer. But, if we put all this parking in and we meet the city requirements and they're parked way down to the south, nobody's going to use them. They're going to go to a different restaurant or they're going to go to a different town. So, to say we need 450 stalls on site to meet city code or 489, and then there's stalls that aren't anywhere near close to the building, will they be used? What's the point of that? So, I think they're all valid concerns and I'm willing to put the money in the bank. We spent the money on the engineering to show it can be done. I'm just simply asking you guys to consider less stalls and we expand it if need be.
And Mayor, the proof of parking agreement is critical from the city staff's perspective because although the traffic study evaluated the site based in comparison with the city of Wayzata, this is not the Lake Street of Wayzata with a mixed use development.
Right.
Wayzata has considerable on-street parking. They have public parking facilities throughout downtown Wayzata that help balance the supply of private public parking. And having done planning work in Wayzata dealing with the parking issues that they have, it's not as simple as the formula that was presented. So this project needs to stand alone, and the proof of parking accomplishes that.
I mean, a lot of the comments though, also the last time we were here and at planning commission are how many dwelling units apartments that you have here. So outside of the business side of it, and you've talked about sharing cars and for people not having a car and borrowing the rental car thing that you've talked about. But potentially 300 of these stalls could be taken up by the people that live in the apartment if they have two cars.
Correct.
Most of the residents in Otsego have two cars because they have to commute to where they shop or work. Not everyone works from home. So, I think that that's my concern too, that yes, there may be openings during the day for me to come to Tipsy Chicken, but what if at night, as you talked about, you don't want to choke out and have no parking for your restaurant? You potentially are doing that with just how many apartment buildings you have here.
Yeah, well, and again, we're not doing that because we're saying, we'll give you the money. We've done the engineering and we've done the stormwater calculations, so we can do on site well over 400, I think 420 stalls. So that's significantly more, even if every person in the apartment had two stalls, that still leaves us 120 stalls for commercial uses, assuming everybody's in their apartment. And I know Ken Nathy would also be open to a similar situation as the Rockwoods area where he would allow a cross parking easement so that when the 101 Market's closed at night, there's additional stalls that are even closer to the building. So if that's something that the city's done in the past and has worked, I know Ken Nathy would be or willing to do that as well. He sees a lot of value in the project and bringing people to the community in the area. So that may open up a lot of stalls that he's got in his facility.
But it would be on the north side, so you're walking around the apartment building.
We could have a north side entrance as well. There's actually a trail designated to go all along the north side to connect with Carrots Landing.
Sure.
That is right next to his parking lot. So wouldn't be hard do an entrance there though, if that's need be.
Switching to retail now.
Yeah.
You've talked about Tipsy Chicken, the drawing show potentially 2 restaurants and other retail space. And so to your own comment, you said it leaves about 120 stalls for that. That's not that many though, if you have 2 restaurants and
It-
retail at night. I mean,
So I think again, if you guys base your city code standards on meeting every parking need, that's 489 stalls. We're coming at 450 proof of parking stalls, we're coming, 40 stalls light. As Dan suggested, or as Dan said, we're just simply taking all your guys' studies and putting them together and saying, we're gonna need the max of everything. There's 0 considerations for mixed use, right? So if you're eating at Tipsy Chicken restaurant, we don't have a seat for somebody to come and park there. And if you're not eating at Tipsy Chicken restaurant, you're out at a different restaurant, now we have a parking spot for that person to come there, right? So if you look at the max capacity of the building at any given time, and you take the worst case assumption, that is, we need every single person's there with 2 cars, right? Not any
in the
person
apartments.
in the apartment. Nobody's shopping at any of the restaurants that lives in the apartment. Nobody's eating at any of the restaurants that lives at the apartment. Every single apartment's at max, or every single retail place is at max. Both restaurants are fully maxed out, right? And all those people are coming and driving, not to mention, so it's a scenario that just doesn't happen in real life. And even if it did happen in real life, then the restaurant just loses some business, but you're talking, we're short, 39 stalls. So for me as a business owner, certainly a risk I'm willing to take to be able to do a project like this and bring something like this to the community. If people can't get in the restaurant, they can't get into our restaurant now, especially in the winter, right? So the people that would end up losing is, just the restaurant, right? I mean, they would go to another restaurant probably in town, maybe in Rogers, maybe in Elk River, but it's not, for me, it doesn't feel like we're talking about a dire situation here, right? There's no street parking there. People aren't going to be parked on the street. There's not traffic issues there where people are coming and going, right? They're going to pull in if they can get a spot, great. And if they can't, they're going to pick a different place to go. So we've got 450, we're 39 short of city code, and we've got 2 studies that show significantly less parking is needed. I'm just simply asking council to consider that we put in the 318 on-site spots, and we give you the money and hold that in escrow. And if we need more spots, that's great. We'll put more in.
Mayor, quick question
Yeah.
on that. So I think what I heard was that our zoning ordinance maybe doesn't account for the fact that there is overlap in usage of this type of a building. Is that accurate, Mayor? That's correct. Okay. I mean, I'm kind of tempted to just say, I've said it in the past, I'm not a huge fan of parking minimums. That said, the zoning ordinance is 483. If there's some sort of factor we could come to that would say, here's what we consider to be the overlap factor. But where I'm sitting right now, 132 as a proof of parking is still way too much. And the tough thing about that is you could be right. You could be right in that, there's a lot more overlap than what we anticipate, or, the commute option completely changes this. That could be the case, but our zoning ordinance is pretty clear in my mind, so.
So council members, you're concerned with the 132 proof that it just will never get installed if it's needed? Or is,
To me, if we're talking about 30 stalls, even that seems a little high to me, to be quite honest, as proof of parking. But to me, that represents such a significant difference between what we require and what you're building. And every situation is different, and I understand that we provide exceptions in some scenarios, but to me, that's just way too much difference.
sure. So one thing to consider on a project like this is there's a pretty lengthy lease up period. And so, that proof of parking, you guys could, say, hey, that needs to get installed at any period, right? So the building is going to be completed, right? And then you still have to lease up the apartments. You're really going to start to understand and see the parking, right? So if we're only 50% leased and this thing is, the parking lot's already full, we're going to have the opportunity to install those extra stalls well ahead of the demand being there, if that makes sense. So while we may be proposing a lot of proof of parking, the engineering work is done. Upon final plat, the check will be with the city. And all we have to do is get out the paving machine, really, is essentially what it comes down to. And we'll have plenty of opportunity to do that. So it won't be a situation like Cowboy Jack's where people are parking on the streets, parking on the dirt and all that stuff for quite a while. We're not going to have sort of instant demand to fill that entire thing. The commercial space needs to get leased out. Both the restaurants need to get up to speed and all that. So I don't think the parking is going to be a day one. Hey, here's your CO and hey, here's all this parking needed. So something to consider, that there will be plenty of lead time to determine the parking and to be able to add that if there appears to be a need for it.
Jesse, do you have any, maybe you can't say, but any idea of what your goal is for the retail?
Yeah, I mean, my goal is for phase one is to definitely get, we want to get a lot of energy down there, right? We want to have a lot of people visiting the space. We want to have a lot of uses that support each other. So certainly we want to get some type of hair salon down there or something so people can get their hair done. Then they can come and have lunch, right? You know, looking at some type of maybe a daycare or something like an after school program so people can have their kids down there. Well, maybe they're getting lunch. We're going to have the playground amenity up on the plaza. We want to be able to do things like music on the plaza, potentially work with the farmers market and find a new home for them. That's super attractive to everybody in the community. So the retail on phase one is not as large as the ultimate goal is. So we're going to have Tipsy Chicken will own and operate Tipsy, right? We're going to have the rooftop concept, which will be a totally different restaurant.
Is that something you're running?
That's something that I'll run. In the lobby, again, we want to create like a public lobby too, where people can come in, get out of the weather, meet up with people. And so the lobby's gonna have like a pop-up coffee bar, juice bar type of thing. So you can walk up, get a coffee, maybe go out to the plaza, meet a girlfriend to talk, drama or whatever it is, girls do. No offense, but
Wow.
we get that at Tipsy all the time. You walk around and you hear it, but so no, I mean, the idea is like,
I think
we want to
males are
attract,
males are dramatic too.
yeah, that's true. That is true. But we want to attract people to the area, into the community. And we really want to bring people that don't know this region, right? Like we want to create a destination where people can come to town and they can go, wow, that was an awesome restaurant. Oh, there's Carrick's Landing. Let me take my coffee and walk for a mile and a half, right? We want to get the people that are guardian angels out, or the go-go's as they call them there, and take the trail down and, come spend some money. So I think we need a mix. So phase one, again, it's hard to know, right, until you see what the demand is. But the goal would be that phase one is definitely more consumer facing. And then as we develop phases 2 and 3 and ultimately get a lot more space, and we want to have a mix of like insurance companies down there. I work next to CAD Engineering that was downtown Elk River for a while, if you guys are familiar with them. And those guys were always going out to lunch. They'd always be hosting clients, right, that would be coming in to see them, to look at hiring their services. They had their little one-wheelers, if you ever notice them cruising around downtown. So I think the idea is to get a good mix of people so that, if it's an insurance company, they're bringing their clients in and then they're having lunch or they're shopping at the restaurants, that kind of thing. But yeah, the goal is to really create a public space, very similar to like downtown Disney, where you've got shopping, entertainment, recreation, and then people living above you. So that's kind of the goal. And then I'm gonna own and operate it. And so one of the nice things is like, if you live there, you're getting a discount at Tipsy Chicken, right? Or all the restaurants. And if you work there, we're going to give you a discount on your rent, right? So I think there's a lot of synergies there too that we want to exploit for people that live there and for people that want to, eat there. So.
Yes, Tina.
Jesse, you mentioned, I can't remember what you said, as far as like in this first phase, how many retail businesses are we looking at?
So there'll be Tipsy Chicken on the plaza level. Then we'll have the rooftop restaurant concept. And then on the main level, which is like street parking level, there's space for another business.
Okay.
And then when you get up to the plaza, there's space for 3 additional businesses.
So 4.
So you would have,
Outside of the
yes,
restaurants.
now those could be split, right? I mean,
Sure.
any business can be smaller or bigger. So depending on what the use case is, they may be, it may be anywhere from say 3 to 7 based on the space we have, based on
Okay.
the square footage.
Okay.
So they're all bays that are sort of designed to be split up, just like Tipsy Chicken has 3 bays, right? We started with 2 and then we added a 3rd bay.
Okay.
So we may have different use cases based on the size of the business.
Okay.
I think a hair salon would take up probably smaller than what we have allocated. So then you might get something else in there too. So.
Dan, can you show me the map? Jesse talks about the trail, that I could take the trail from Ken's property. for 101 property. Show me. I'm getting there.
So we have in the conditions of approval that there be a trail from the site through outlots B and A to connect to Waterfront East. That would have to be connected to Nathy's as part of the development. It's not currently shown on the plan. There would be sidewalk along Quantrell
Quantrell, yeah.
up to the project as well. So that would be the front entrance into the commercial portion of the project in the lobby.
And we do have the actual, I believe it's a 10-foot wide paved path for fire access as well that will be installed with the building all along the north side there.
Yes,
Which-
along the back end.
That's on.
That's shown here.
Yeah.
One of the conditions is that needs to be reviewed to verify that it does comply with the fire code. That was one of the comments from the emergency services director.
So it's not been verified?
It has not been verified yet. That can be addressed prior to final plat.
And we're just talking the construction of it, I believe, right, Dan? I mean,
Actually, the width,
the width, yeah. So that could be adjusted if it needed to be, but
it may need to be 20 feet wide.
But
is
the-
what staff suspects.
the architects have verified it meets fire code from a permitting standpoint, like access. So like Dan's just talking, there's a question on the width of it. That would be accommodated if need be, but
So with the trail through outlot A and B, and you're just took a little cursor and
Yeah.
showed me, but can that be built right now since we're still kind of waiting or since?
It needs to wait to be designed until the floodway issue is resolved.
with approval tonight, the floodway will go forward and before construction's completed, we'll have that process completed. So that can certainly be some type of condition to approval that says, prior to, completion. But as Dan indicated, we can't do any grading in the floodway until that process is completed. And to be able to put the trail in, we'd have to do grading. We could certainly do a temporary, rock trail or something of that nature if need be, or we can just mow a grass trail as well to connect to the Carrick's Landing.
But can you zoom out I mean, where's it getting me? Still just to the back by his rocks or where would that get?
So this would be basically where the building is located.
Yeah,
You connect through, you have to come up through outlot A, basically to connect to the trail around Carrick's Landing.
how far is that? Ron?
From just viewing this, I'd say it's over 500 feet.
It's about that big.
Yeah.
And we do have a trail, we do have a park concept there image. I don't know, Dan, if you can pull that up, showing what we're proposing once we do have the floodway back to the river, which would be done on our phase 2 development. And that shows a number of trails, the amphitheater, all the amenities. and
It would
stuff.
be about 600 feet following the Nathy's lot line between the subject site and Carrick's Landing. So this line here is the south line of Carrick's Landing.
Other questions or comments?
Mayor,
Yes, Ryan?
are we ready to talk about building height?
Yeah, it's on my list too.
I mean, I appreciate kind of working on it and trying to come down, but it's still way too tall. So if I think I heard you correctly, I think it was that you're only 10 feet from the next highest. I don't know if that's what I read.
Well, I think we're 11 to 12. Dan's got listed as 14, but our final grade will actually come up a little bit. So I think
Are you
Dan's,
referring to page?
I think the
4, Ryan?
calculation that was
Yeah.
done, whether by Dan or Ron right now, is based on current grades. Potentially, but
Mayor, we measure building height from grade to top, so where their final grade sets doesn't affect how this building compares to other buildings in the city.
Ryan, you can continue, sorry, or if you had more to that.
I think that's my point. It's just, it's too tall. And again, I think it's one of those scenarios where, if it were just up to me, I'd say go ahead and build it, but we have these zoning regulations, I understand at the building height, last time we kind of talked about maybe there being a safety issue. And from my understanding, the emergency services director is kind of given okay, at least on the height side of it.
Correct.
But I still think, if the zoning regulations need to change, then let's do it, but it's not meeting them, so.
I would agree with the height being too tall for this, and that was what I said last time.
Hey, I understand and respect your guys' decision. The height is proposed based on a number of reasons why, so it is very important that the project meets that occupancy to support everything we want to do there. I'd ask you to consider that we're taking essentially floodland and building on it, so where other buildings are built maybe already on not floodland, we're considerably lower and we've got the freeway blocking us, so from a perspective of driving in the community, this is going to be a really an awesome thing that really, hey, where are we? What is this, right? So it's not going to feel high. I mean, you're blocked by the freeway. We're 11 or 12 feet higher than the peak of Guardian Angels. That's not even noticeable in any kind of distance. In reality, it may seem high on paper, and it is a PUD development. You guys have the ability and the authority to weigh the good with the bad here, right? And so I completely respect your decision if you feel that 12 feet of height is too far.
Another point to make just about parking, to go back to that for a second, was staff did not support the on-street parking either for plowing.
Correct.
And we talked about, if you see in the drawing, you would be basically turning into the lane to get yourself into those parking spots. So you'd be kind of whipping into the spot. I guess you're not, most people aren't coming from the south going north. They're coming from the north going south. So you would be taking a left-hand turn and then parking at an angle.
Mayor, the intent of the design would obviously be traffic would go past the site, turn around at the cul-de-sac, come back and enter. Anyone that's driven through downtown Elk River knows what people do is just
They do not
make
go.
a strange turn in and then
Yes.
several parking maneuvers
And
there.
there are lots of accidents there. And it's also hard to see if it's busy when they're backing out. Now, Elk River is obviously different than what we're looking at here. The only people that would be coming from the south are the people in the summer months that may be at the site. Right.
Mayor, one last comment from me.
Yeah.
I think the last issue is, and it's minor compared to the other ones, but the floor area that I think some of the apartments wouldn't meet the minimum for floor area. And I understand if you kind of take the average, it works out, but again, I'm kind of looking at what the zoning is. So that would be some more feedback.
Yeah, so one of the comments that came up during planning on that was they would meet it if we took out a wall and called them studios. And so again, I'm just asking council, this is a small town, right? This should be small town government. We should look at laws and apply them in the way they're intended, right? And so if the goal is that we have minimum size units, and we're meeting that on the variety of the units, but people want one bedrooms, not studios. I think it's an arbitrary rule. I think it should be looked at and said, okay, well, we can take out a wall and we call it studio, and it far exceeds that requirement. So we've presented them the way we have so that we can get the units, so that we can provide a wide variety. This isn't the same apartment where it's like, here's unit A and we're going to stack that, every floor, and we're going to have 50 of those, right? If you look at our floor plans, we've got a lot of unique units that fit different styles, different lifestyles, different age groups. And so, we looked at that and thought it's kind of silly. I mean, quite frankly, stuff's getting smaller. People want to spend their time outdoors. People don't want to, maintain houses. And so, certainly if we needed to, we would remove those walls and call them studios if that was need be. But again, that to me seems like something where, again, the council has the discretion to look at that and say, does this meet the intent of what we're wanting in the city? And then you guys make that decision. And I think that's very much like the parking. And I think that's very much like the building height. I think you guys rely on your commissions to provide feedback. Planning commission supported this overwhelmingly. It's their job to comment on planning related items. I know I live in this community. We've got tons of interest in this project. And I would just, ask you guys to, again, weigh the good, weigh the benefits of the tax base increase, the money the city's going to have, the potential for a wonderful destination park, bringing all that revenue that Elk River gets right now, bringing it to Otsego for the restaurant, expanding on that, and weigh that against not having 39 parking stalls and weigh that against 12 feet of a taller building, right? That's something you guys do have to decide, but I just ask that you consider everything and not, just the two items that we've been hung up on, that we've made improvements on, significant improvements on since we were last here, so. Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, one more question, and I'm assuming the answer is gonna be yes, but I guess I want to hear it from you. You talk about just taking down a wall and having a studio. What does our market show up here? Are people looking for that? Because
So
I have a daughter who's looked at apartments and most people, young or old, are looking for 2 bedrooms. So I guess I'm surprised with just saying
well, and that's,
studio side would be so high.
no, that's why we want to provide 1 bedrooms, because I think you're right. People want that closed, so we could take a wall out and call those studios and meet the code. But I don't think that's necessarily what people are looking for. And I will say, in regards to market studies, we've had 2 done. I had an independent market study done last June, and that showed overwhelming demand for our product, and that's specific to our product being true Class A mixed use. So they didn't look at, apartments. It was, what does mixed use bring? And then they obviously brought into the equation the riverfront access, right? So there's overwhelming demand for it. And then as part of our finance package, we were required to get another independent one that the bank chose as a market study, and that validated our previous study and actually showed an even higher demand. So the demand is there. People want to come and live here. People want to live in mixed use buildings. They want to be able to walk to the restaurants. They want to have access to underground parking. They want to have access to amenities like the city park and the park we're going to eventually build. It's a great area where we could be doing things like scooters, like Duluth has. People can get around in the summer on that kind of stuff. But I think the demand is there overwhelming. I'm happy to share those market studies with you if you need to take a look at them. But when it comes to the 1 bedroom studio question, yes, I think that people do want bedrooms, right? They want bedrooms, they want a door, they want the privacy. So that's where I'm saying, okay, we may not meet the 700 square feet. I don't know who comes up with that number. What information did you guys use to come up with 700? I don't know. I'd like to see that too, but we're simply saying we'll give you 700 across all of our 1 bedrooms, but we want to provide a big variety, right? For different people and different layouts. So we're meeting the 700 across all 1 bedrooms. It's just some units might be slightly smaller than that. And those units could be studios, which I think would not be as attractive. And in reality, people would move in and they're going to stand up some kind of partition anyways. And then that's more of a fire code issue than anything, right? So.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So in listening to you again, I'm going back to, creating a unique area for people to go to that's Otsego. And I don't mean this with this disrespect, but again, we have codes and ordinances for a reason, and there was time for you to meet those needs or change your scope of your project or the scale of your project. So I just, and again, I don't want to be disrespectful, but again, it's just, this was in front of you.
Yeah.
And that were some of the things that how we do things in the city of Otsego. And not that those things, like Ryan said, cannot be changed, but as of right now, this is what it is. So.
Yeah, so I've only improved it since it was approved last time, council member. It was approved last time with a taller height, and with the requirement to put in the 489 parking stalls. So we have improved the height on it.
But it still doesn't meet.
Yeah, and the project won't go forward without, if the project has to be lowered, it won't go forward, unfortunately. And that's a decision you guys will have to make. But we did have approval last time, and I've brought that back to you guys to get approval again and improved on that. So.
But the approval was if you were reading the conditions as far as the height of the building, parking, working with the Army Corps, it's still all these unknowns. And again, I can take your word for it, but I don't have anything in front of me tonight saying, yes, this is how far along we are with the floodplain. And
well, I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding, respectfully, council member. The floodplain stuff was regarding, the city acquiring the river frontage as part of the approvals.
right.
And that piece, we've worked with the Parks Department and come to the determination that an easement would all be that's needed. So that requirement's been fulfilled, right? The height was approved at the height that we had last time. The parking needed to be shown at final plat for the full parking. So really the only change from the previous approval that we received is that we're saying instead of installing 489 parking stalls, we're asking to show proof of parking for 450.
But
we-
correct me if I'm wrong, you're in front of us because you let it expire.
I didn't get notice on that, unfortunately, and that's my fault. Typically you would get like an email, right? Hey, by the way, are you moving forward your final plat?
But it's,
I got a notice stating that your plat's now expired. But again, that's my fault and I'll take responsibility for that. If council wishes to deny the project today, I understand that everything we've done is for nothing. It's completely up to council. I think that we provided something quite remarkable. We've improved on, and I've listened to all the feedback. It's for you guys' consideration here tonight, and I truly appreciate it. I take no offense. It's your guys' job, and you guys were elected to make these decisions, but it is within a PUD district. So it's a district that gives the council flexibility to make these decisions and to deviate from standard city codes.
Mayor, real quick.
Yeah.
From what I hear from my council and yourself, I know I was part of I was one of the council members who approved your last one before it expired. One key thing, for those of us on council who've ever built anything, one key I've always put in is whenever a city gives me codes or anything, you go above and beyond, not like, whoa, wait, I want to do it this way. You have guides and guidelines, but I want to do it this way. Well, when it comes to your final plat, I would suggest you build above and beyond, actually, with the parking 489 or more, with the rooms 700 square feet or more, using that as a guide, not like, whoa, wait a minute, we can point this and that, we can, point fingers and, argue and all that, but, there's an old saying, like Councilmember Dunlap said, these codes and stuff are here for a reason. And that's, for you to build on, for you to do the math and check everything out here. And then of course with the, we could all argue about the height of the building, but when it comes to everything else, you really got to come above, not only that and beyond. So I would say, make sure, when this gets a final plat, you go above and beyond with your parking, with your room size, with your restaurants. And, because if you have your tipsy chicken and I come in there, hey, I need 12, well, all I can do is give you 10. It doesn't work for business. So on the other side of it, for safety in your tenants, we'd love to give you 700, but we gave you 650 because, it's better to ask. And sometimes I've seen with what's come to council, we frown upon asking for forgiveness than permission. We like the permission. And then, hey, we decided to go 710 instead of 700, go above and beyond instead of, 650, if you know what I mean. So I highly recommend you go above and beyond on your high dollar building here in your investment. Thank you.
Dan, Jesse made a comment. How does this work for, I will say, I can't think of very many that we've seen a project again because they've let their time expire.
Mayor, usually we're in regular conversation with applicants, and they'll request the necessary extensions. This project just expired. We don't monitor the timeline.
Because it's the developers.
It's the developer's responsibility to do so.
Right, any other questions or comments?
Thank you,
Makes-
council members, mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Where are people at here? To make some decision either way.
Mayor, I'd say this is not a final plat and we, three of us did approve this before. I think with our discussions today with the ownership, that'll give them even better direction to go until final plat. This is not a final plat, correct? This is
Correct.
just a renew of what he,
It'd be approval of the PUD development stage plan and preliminary plat with the 21 conditions.
Okay.
Based on the findings of fact and decision.
and it looks like planning commission did a good job, but they did also vote 7-0. So Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
Motion to approve a preliminary plat and PUD development stage plan for Otsego Waterfront District, formerly Mississippi Landings, subject to the conditions as stated by the findings of fact and decision as presented. Is that decision or discussion? Decision. the decision as presented.
Is there a second? I'll ask again, is there a second? Motion fails due to a second. Dan, I'll look to you and the attorney. Do we need to make a official motion to deny,
Mayor,
or what is the
for
option?
City council to make a motion to deny, you need to have findings, written findings of fact supporting that decision in front of you. We can finalize those and print them if you wish to table this to later in the agenda. Review those at that portion of the agenda. The other option would be a motion to approve that is seconded that fails. Then the obligation is only that those opposing the motion state for the record the reasons for their decision.
Quick clarification on that. You can second a motion and not approve it, right?
Sure, you can second the motion and then
For discussion.
against it.
Right,
Yes.
right. I'll second then.
Do I have to restate?
So
Mayor, the motion should be restated in second.
Council would like to restate or remotion? Motion to approve a preliminary plat and PUD development stage plan for Otsego Waterfront District, formerly Mississippi Landings, subject to the conditions as stated by the findings of fact and decision as presented.
I'll second.
motion by Jeff, seconded by Ryan. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed signify same sign. Aye.
Mayor, now each member needs to state for the record to be recorded by the clerk, the reasons for their vote.
Let's
I'll
start.
just go first.
Sure.
Building's too tall, rooms are too small, and there's not enough parking spaces.
Tina?
I'm okay with the height. I always have been, so I'm fine with that. Parking for me is an issue, and the fact that this expired is another issue because I don't feel that the developer was really prone to making something here in Otsego be what he wanted. So, those are my reasons for not approving it.
Mine are parking stalls, as Mr. Dun or Councilmember Dunlap, also building height and room sizes as following our requirements for the city. Jeff?
Mayor, I'm also, I'm okay, or I second what Tina said. I'm okay with the height, but yeah, definitely the parking stalls, that needs work. And also the rooms. And like I said before in my statement, it's better to overbuild and overplan than to underplan and undermine.
Brittany?
Madam Mayor, the height of the building and the size of the rooms. And as well, I should say square footage of the rooms, and then the parking is the situation.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 4.2. I don't want to miss quadriga. I did it right. I've been practicing ventures. Okay, I was like, oh, I don't want to say it wrong. Sorry. So item 2 is the quadriga ventures. I'll turn this over to our city planner.
Thank you, Mayor. Quadriga Ventures is here representing the Harpster property, proposing a comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use plan to guide the property from low to medium density residential to medium to high density residential. This again is a legislative act giving the council great discretion to consider many factors and reaching a decision. But we also note that this is subject to future applications to proceed with the development. All we really have in front of us is the concept sketch plan at this point. So this would include a zoning map amendment, which is also a legislative decision, preliminary and final plat and conditional use permits for the phase 1, which would consist of row townhouses, and the expected phase 2 development of an elementary school for ISD 728. We outlined for the Planning Commission the land use concept plan that's included as part of the comprehensive plan, encouraging growth management using infill development, providing transitions from intense land uses back from major roadways into low density residential neighborhoods, and incorporating institutional facilities such as public school facilities as part of that land use arrangement and development pattern. Housing is encouraged from the standpoint that single-family dwellings will always be the primary form of housing in Otsego, but there is a need from both a life cycle and attainability standpoint to provide alternatives in the form of two-family townhouse or multiple family dwellings. What the comprehensive plan says is, yes, encourage those types of land uses, but also provide them in dispersed locations so that they're not all concentrated into one single area, when then the intensity of the land use can cause either compatibility issues with surrounding development or potentially interfere with infrastructure. Comprehensive plan also deals a lot with the idea of the need for community facilities such as schools. When you lay out your land use plan, you obviously can't expect where the school district may be able to acquire property or when that property will be needed. So these are often handled on a case-by-case basis. And so the comprehensive plan encourages the city to work with the school district to assist in finding appropriate locations that would serve their populations, also the city's constituents, that have adequate infrastructure capability to support them and where they'd be compatible with surrounding uses. Also, the city encourages and has planned for development of collector and arterial streets to accommodate traffic development, both from a residential, commercial, or business land use, as well as access to the institutional land uses. The future land use plan that includes designating this site for low to medium density residential uses defines that as 3 to 5 units per acre, where the question comes in with the subject site is in the form of single family villas, or 2-family dwellings. They're showing row townhouses on the phase 1 portion of the development here, which necessitates the change. Medium to high density residential uses are at 5 to 12 units an acre and would include those row townhouse dwellings. Transportation plan abutting this site, which is located here on the map and then along the east side of future Randolph Avenue. So it abuts River Road, County Road 42, which is a minor arterial roadway, County Road 36, Rawlings Avenue and 53rd Street on the south end. As a major collector street, which will also be undergoing an improvement project in 2027, including shoulder expansion, roundabout construction. The city will incorporate a trail on the west side of the roadway as part of that project from Randolph Avenue up to River Road. Randolph Avenue, which exists to the south of the development site, that was constructed as part of the River Place project and provides access to the city's west or east wastewater treatment facility. That would be extended north as part of the phase 1 project to 65th Street, which is currently a gravel roadway. That intersection and then out to River Road would be improved to collector street standards as well. This serves not only the proposed development, but also improves access to the River Point, River Place, Meadows of River Point, and Highlands of River Point developments that are currently largely reliant on County Road 36 to reach either Queens Avenue on one end or River Road on the opposite end, outside of inter-neighborhood connections. Utilities are available to the site. This is one of the properties identified as having sewer immediately available. It's actually shown in 2 classifications just because the property exists as 2 parcels. But the utilities are available at the south line of phase 1 and would be extended through the project to then serve future phase 2 as part of the development of the site. The developer would pay all costs regarding sewer and water utility availability fees. The individual builder would pay the connection charges at the time of development. There is an existing force main that connects to the Quad A Avenue lift station. So basically all of the wastewater from the East Sewer District is going through this corridor. The city may place an additional force main pipe in that area to accommodate future growth that's forecast to occur within the East Sewer District. The developer would receive credits for that, but it would save the city and have the infrastructure in place when it's needed. This area largely started developing with the 1998 comprehensive plan. The property immediately west of the treatment facility, property owner lobbied to have their property included in the sewer district, and it was included. So that's where River Point came from, and then proceeded with River Place initially. With the recession, development largely stopped for approximately a decade, but resumed again with Lennar and Capstone Homes building additional subdivisions in this area. Everything north to County Road 36 on either side of Randolph Avenue is planned for residential development and would facilitate both the proposed phase one development as well as the school facility. So what the developer provided to support their comprehensive plan amendment is an overall sketch plan for the property that shows development at just under 5 units an acre. Phase one, which they would intend to proceed with this fall, potentially would include 41 gross acres, 149 dwelling units. What they're showing is single family lots matching the pattern of development in Meadows of River Point, extending north so that you have the same type of home and lot standards abutting each other. And then they would have villa homes creating a transition, again, single family units, but transitioning to the 110 row townhouses that abut directly to Randolph Avenue and 65th Street, as well as a portion of River Road. The density that they're showing on the phase one project is 4.7 units per acre. So it's still well within that low to medium range that the property is currently guided. Again, but for the form of the housing units, the proposed land use complies with the comprehensive plan. Phase two is 36 acres in area and would be intended to be subject to a purchase and donation agreement between the developer and ISD 728 for a future elementary school. What they're showing is 216 row townhouses based solely on establishing a valuation for those agreements, not intending to go forward with it. So the land use change facilitates that agreement. At the Planning Commission meeting, there were questions as to why ISD 728 would look to this site for a school facility. I can say that city staff has talked frequently about this site with ISD 728 because they've long held that they need an elementary school in this area of the community. One of the things to understand, of course, is elementary schools, maybe not the way they used to be, but they're still more neighborhood oriented facilities. So you can see the school district boundary maps on the overhead. You have Prairie View covering the west portion of ISD 728. Otsego Elementary covers basically everything north of 65th Street and west of Highway 101 to the center portion of the city. And subject site and all of the development in Otsego that was formerly Frankfort Township is currently being served by Hassan Elementary. That area of Rogers is also growing and creating facility needs for ISD 728. So their belief is their professional staff is looking at this site saying this location would be appropriate to help balance out school needs in Otsego and reduce pressure on the elementary facilities in Rogers. So a lot of the discussion at the Planning Commission concerned the acquisition of phase two by ISD 728. In the report, we explained that this was a model suggested by city staff based on the city's experience with acquiring property from a private landowner that was received by the city as a donation and then used to transfer to MnDOT, meeting the city's full financial obligation for the Trunk Highway 101 project in the 2000s decade in terms of the valuation of the property. So no additional tax money had to be spent related to the roadway improvements. The purchase agreement that the school district and developer are talking about would basically allow a 2-year window for the school district to acquire the property. The designation of the property to medium and high density residential allows the developer to establish a market value for the property based on that development potential. And then the second component with this is a donation agreement. The developer essentially receives less than market value for the property in cash from the school district. The difference between that valuation, what they receive in cash payment, becomes their donation. They receive a tax benefit for doing that, that they can then apply to their business activities. So the example would be as if the property were valued at $100,000 and ISD 728 provided $50,000 in cash per acre for the property. The taxpayers are saving that $50,000 an acre, but the developer is still realizing the full value of their property through the donation and the tax credits that they receive. Essentially, this is a mechanism to save both the taxpayers of ISD 728 and the city of Otsego that difference in actual cash payment less than the value of the property. It also provides ISD 728 greater ability to provide community facilities needed to support the growth occurring both in Otsego and the district as a whole. We also provided to the Planning Commission examples where city staff views that having these smaller scattered sites of townhouse developments are relatively successful. Each of these is adjacent to collector streets and transition to single family neighborhoods. So the first is just south of here at Randolph Avenue and County Road 36. The orange parcel is the 32 townhouse dwellings. The green parcel was actually intended to be developed for townhouses, but the city ended up acquiring it during the recession to develop Frankfurt Park. There's the Prairie Creek townhomes adjacent to the Prairie Creek single family neighborhood, also adjacent to Otsego Elementary. A little further west than that at Page Avenue and 78th Street, 75th Street, Pheasant Ridge, combined townhouse, single family villas with surrounding single family within the Boulder Creek and additional subdivisions of Pheasant Ridge. And then on the west side of the city is Pleasant Creek Farms, adjacent to County Road 19 and the West Treatment Facility, Beaudry Meadows, and the Arbor Creek single family neighborhood. Wildflower Meadows was platted with the intent of having both single family and townhouse development as part of their overall project. City staff recommended approval of the application based on consistency with the policies of the comprehensive plan. There are obviously, again, the emphasis is placed on the future applications. There was considerable discussion about the latitude that the city has with regards to those applications. Again, under the interim land use plan provisions of the comprehensive plan, no zoning decision is being made tonight. And that's a decision reserved by the city for a future date with an actual development plan. So you have discretion in approving the timing of that zoning change. And if it's not accompanied by a school, the city can require changes to that. The city can also reverse its decision on amending the comprehensive plan and the land use designation of the property if it finds that the purchase agreement or donative agreement between developer and school district has fallen through. Planning Commission held a public hearing June 15th to consider the application. A number of residents attended the meeting. You have copies of the draft minutes as part of the packet. We also provided the 5 written comments that were received in advance of the public hearing. As far as the Planning Commission discussion, the ultimate vote ended up being 4-2, and as stated on the record and in the minutes. Both commissioners objected to the basis of the change being the financial agreement between the developer and ISD 728. The other didn't believe that it was an appropriate location for a school facility. So they voted no, their objections were noted, and the other 4 voted to recommend approval. City staff provided resolution 2024-52, amending the comprehensive plan for your consideration this evening.
Thank you. Does the developer wish to comment?
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. My name is Megan Rogers, and I'm attorney with Larkin Hoffman, and I represent Quadriga Ventures. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. One of the things that I think the city planner has outlined very well is that this project and the type of density that's proposed before you this evening is truly contingent upon the school district coming in and purchasing that phase 2 site. So we recognize that this property is currently zoned and it's guided for the low density use. And the comprehensive I should say the concept plan that's in front of you for the phase 1 site is consistent with the lot coverage and the density that would be expected within that low density use. This is really an innovative suggestion by staff to find a path towards efficiency in terms of financing both the development of additional single family homes, villa homes, and townhomes within the city, as well as bringing the school district a site that appears to be viable to them for expanding the elementary school access. One of the things that I would be happy to share tonight is any questions that you might have about our agreement with the school district. As it exists today is an option agreement. We received comments back earlier today. They are not substantive in nature, so we're very comfortable with where we are in terms of our work with them. It would be an option agreement, excuse me, to for a 2-year period while they obtain financing and they move forward with due diligence work on the site. So that's all of the soil testing, those types of questions that they will have in terms of providing access and how they would build their building. They'll have the opportunity to do that during that 2 years. Meanwhile, we would develop the phase 1 site with the an mix of the housing options that we've shown you on the concept plan tonight. I think it's also important for us to know sort of the legal basis and the legal steps we would need to go through in order to move forward with development for the phase 1 site. So tonight is the comprehensive plan amendment before you. We would plan to come back to you with a rezoning action as well as a site plan approval later before any work would continue on the phase 1 site. And so you have an opportunity to look to see what we're building, another opportunity for public comment. And I think a conditional use permit is also required as part of that approach. So lots of opportunities for you to look at what will actually go there. But tonight we're talking about density. And again, certainly very happy to answer any questions that you may have about this arrangement and our project moving forward.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
I would just add that I've spoken with ISD 728 business manager Andy Olmos, and he has confirmed that they are moving towards finalizing this agreement. Don't see any substantive issues that would prevent that from happening.
So the question, Megan made a comment that they would have 2 years to do the soil testing. And at any time they could back out, but we would still have the ability to change that phase 2 then when it came
Correct.
forward.
And we acknowledge as the development group that if the school district was to back out of the option agreement and elect not to purchase the property, we would anticipate that the city council would take action on its own accord to re-guide that to the low density land use that it's currently guided at today.
Mayor, just to add one more point to that. City staff would be engaged directly with the school district as they're doing their due diligence about what the city's requirements are, utility connections, wetland issues, grading issues. So it won't be that this would be considered and then everyone disappears for 2 years until they show up with plans for a school or decide not to exercise that option. City staff would be engaged and aware of progress.
Thank you. All right, council questions for the developer or staff? It's choking.
Madam Mayor, I just want to confirm what I heard. I think I heard that if we made no change, phase 1 is still compliant with the existing zoning. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mayor, so what the land use plan says, it's 2 things. It's the density, so less than 5 units an acre, and also single family, 2-family, or single family villa. They're showing the 110 row townhomes, which would not be allowed under the current designation.
But when you combine it, you said it's
It's the form of the housing that triggers the requirement. And that's done intentionally so that if the city has on its comprehensive plan, something guided for low to medium density residential, there's a basis to say, no, we don't want townhomes there. But we can reconsider what's done on the 20,000 acre basis of the comprehensive plan based on a specific development proposal, that this slight change to the plan to add density or to add row townhomes at this intersection of 2 collector streets is logical and makes sense and is supported by the policies of the compound.
Madam Mayor,
yes.
I would like to make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-52, amending the comprehensive plan as requested by, oh boy,
Quadriga.
Quadriga. You got it.
Thank you. Ventures.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Brittany, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'm having a little bit of a difficult time with this one because I think what it seems to me like we're doing is increasing the density of phase two really, which sort of inflates the value of that parcel so that a donation or a sale could be made. I kind of agree with the commissioners that voted no on this. It doesn't seem like something we should be doing, so I'm gonna vote no.
Dan, can you comment to that?
Mayor, that's a valid opinion. As we outlined, the city has used this approach for its own improvements. So it's a reasonable approach from the standpoint of applying community and developing community facilities. We certainly wouldn't entertain this for a number of applications. As I said at the planning commission, it's definitely unusual. But it is one means of accomplishing both city and school district goals.
But in the end, the donation, the benefiting, to Ryan's point, the benefiting donation is to the developer to inflate it for their tax purposes of a donation, correct?
Or sale.
Well, Mayor, if they sold the property, they'd be selling it at a valuation for medium to high density when it's very likely the city's going to reverse that action.
Yeah.
True. So then they're taking a risk on that. I think.
Mhm.
Right.
Well, and simultaneously, there certainly is value that exists today to develop this as a single family, as a low density residential neighborhood. And we specialize in doing just that. So this is a site that has been really targeted by the school district. And in lieu of us moving forward with developing that and building homes on that site, we feel like this is an opportunity to collaborate and create an interesting public-private partnership that again was brought to us by city staff. And we think has a good basis in terms of community benefit as well.
I'd also add, having the school district identify this site to which utilities are available and it is within the sewer district is challenging for the school district. When they acquired the site that is Prairie View Elementary and Middle School, that property was not in the sewer district. City staff had identified that to the school district to say, go buy this 80 acres because you're going to need school facilities for this community, especially with the West Sewer District coming online. We can get the utilities to you. We can figure out the roads, but buy the property before the value goes up as development property. Here they're dealing with development property and competing against the private market to acquire a site. So we have seen sketch plans for this property from prior developers that included all single family homes. And city staff was concerned that the school district was missing their opportunity. So we're pleased that the developer has been willing to negotiate with the school district on the potential for them to acquire this site.
So, because there's really not much. When you go farther to the west, that's industrial.
Correct. You can get to you also start running into topography and wetland issues
Mhm.
west of where Randolph is. And then really the most viable sites come down to this site or the property to the south, which is not currently on the market.
There's not much left on the east side for them to acquire.
Not east of Highway 101 where they want this located primarily adjacent to these residential neighborhoods.
Other comments? I guess my comment will be, I don't love phase two, how it's sketched out here. I would not be in favor of that ever being built that way. But I do think that there is benefit to the school district having another site for an elementary school. That neighborhood, as you said, they're all bused to Hassan. So, and elementary, they talk about not trying to put kids on a 101 corridor or a 94 and having them more neighborhood pocket schools. So I can see the value in that, but I'll tell you, when I saw this at planning commission, I cringed. I was like, oh gosh, this is not what I picture for that area.
And I'll just also and put forward for your review that, this is a very high level concept plan. This is not what we'll bring forward to you. First of all, the phase 2 site is the school site. But even with regards to the phase 1 site, you'll see much greater detail when we come in for our formal applications aside from the guide plan amendment later this fall.
Because you did hear the residents that spoke that about the neighborhood here. That They
Yes.
had some concerns with they're in an HOA, so they can't have certain, their fencing and so this
Yes.
was concerning to them. It was obviously most talk about the south side of the project.
Yes, absolutely. And we had the opportunity to stay after for a little bit at the planning commission
Mm.
meeting and meet with those members, specifically the residents who are along 58th Street in the existing development. We talked about how, many of the homes in that neighborhood do not have a traditional sort of backyard to backyard build. There's that interesting trail that comes down into wetlands and runs through sort of the core of that space. And what we promised to bring forward is to have further conversations with them. We talked with our engineer tonight as well. There's a significant drop off between in the land that runs below the homes, and so a treed site or something along the lines of a fence would work. We also did investigate. There's a large utility easement, which is why the existing property owners couldn't install a fence or other screening, but it would not impact our site. And so we would be able to bring that forward at the time of the final site plan review for your consideration and for the neighborhood's consideration as well.
All right, any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Thank you for your time
Motion
tonight.
passes
Thank you.
4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 5.1, Well House 4 Drinking Water Improvement Project. Scott is online.
Good evening. I just realized I did not test this and I'm getting a message that the host has disabled participant screen sharing.
Well,
So,
somebody needs to fix that.
well, how about Dan? I will send you an email real quick with the PowerPoint and we'll keep chugging.
Sounds good.
Okay, that works. Is that good?
Yeah, not technically the host.
Oh,
So I did share, enabled the security, but I believe it's the way the meeting was set up that only hosts can share their screen.
okay.
So
Yeah, in general, that makes a lot of sense. I just didn't see that one coming.
Okay.
Well, while we're getting the PowerPoint through cyberspace, Madam Mayor, Council, thank you for having me here tonight. Adam had counseled me last week to keep the slides short and sweet, and they will be that when they get there. So I just a few things while we're getting the slides up. So Well House 4, this is our first of the well houses that we're converting to water treatment. We opened bids last week, and I'll just say it's very favorable. We'll get to the numbers when we get the slides up because I do not have them exactly memorized. So the treatment that we're adding, remember that the treatment goals are to remove the little bit of iron, manganese, and okay, Dan's getting the slides up. All right, so aspect ratio looks a little different, but we'll keep rolling through and hopefully it doesn't cut off too much important information. So project scope, we'll go through that, a little bit of schedule, funding, and get on with the bids. Okay, so that is this is a cutaway view on that graphic of the inside of the main water plant without the roof. The bid on the left is the backwash recovery tank that's approximately at grade. So let's go to the next one. So again, our goals were to remove radium, manganese, and iron. Those are our three target constituents with this upgrade to the water plant. The main pieces in the project, the granular media filtration is really the main item with this system. So adding filters, again, that the first filtration that we'll be adding to the water plants or the well houses across the system. With that, there's some chemical dosing that we go into. The backwash recovery system is an important aspect of this total water plant system. Standby generator, just increasing the resiliency and uptime, and then some building expansion and improvements that encompasses most of the project elements. Next slide. All right, got cut off a little bit on the side there, but so we've actually got some very good project funding for this. It was about a year and a half ago we had the visit, and the congressionally directed spending managed to have $3.4 million directed towards the project. We were also able to qualify for what's called an emerging contaminants grant. The manganese is not yet a must-do on the list, so it's considered one of the emerging contaminants from a public health standpoint. And that can go up to $3 million additional that would kick into the project. The balance would be through an SRF loan, similar to the loans that we've done in the past. And then the one note that part of why it did take a little bit longer to get this out, this is the first project that we are aware of that combines both the congressionally directed spending that's administered through EPA, as well as the Minnesota Department of Health and the state revolving fund program. So there was some learning all the way around for everyone. We did manage to really thread the needle and show that the project was entirely predated the newer BABA requirements. That's one of the strings that's attached to some of these projects. This will likely be my last SRF funded project that does not include those BABA requirements. That I do truly believe that helped us on the bids. But so just a few notes on the funding. We've got about as much funding for this project as we're probably ever going to get for one of these. So go to the next slide. So we opened bids last Thursday about as late as we could possibly do and still get all this information into the council packet. I'll just say the bids were good. Our engineer's estimate, I knew was probably a little bit high, that we had that including BABA, and we didn't try to attempt to redo the numbers once we figured out that BABA was not in there. The second and third bidder were right around where we anticipated that they would be. And those are Minnesota contractors that we've worked with quite a bit. I was a little bit worried that we might lose Magni Construction, and I really didn't want to come to you at a meeting like this with only a single bidder. So we did shake the trees a little bit more, and one of our other larger projects that's also currently in bidding had gotten some interest from this Market & Johnson, which is a Wisconsin contractor out of Eau Claire. And one of our other teams that's working on a bid had told us about them. We got in contact with them, and they had expressed some interest. So we managed to get a third bidder, and I didn't really expect them to be as aggressive as they were, but they came in pretty aggressive, and it looks like they are trying to move into the Minnesota market. And fortunately, with these bids, it appears that the city will be the beneficiary of that. We'll see how it goes through the project, but they meet all of the contractor qualifications that we had in the bidding requirements, and I really have no reason not to recommend Market & Johnson. So that's what in front of you today, recommending awarding the project to Market & Johnson. So if you do look the detail on the RCA, there are two resolutions on there. One of them is to award to Market & Johnson. And then the next one, go to the next slide. Similar, so our previous engineering contract had gone through piloting, designing, and bidding. This would then be the amendment to finish out the project, including the construction administration. the funding administration associated with that, the on-site construction observation, a little bit of operation and maintenance manual and warranty, post-construction work, as well as the controls, programming, and integration that we typically do with the projects for a professional services amendment, a little bit over $700,000 for that work. Go to the next slide. In terms of construction schedule, I'll walk through these briefly. Assuming that we are able to award to the parent low bidder this evening, we would then go into contracts and work through the notice to proceed. Looking at the initial construction, basically expanding the building and putting in that tank this fall. One of the things, we don't really have enough slack in the system to completely take the water plant offline next summer. So we will have the contractors are required to keep the well house operating before they really tear into things. So through that irrigation season in 2025, we'll be making water basically the same way we are right now. And then once that irrigation season in 2025 wraps up, we'll let them tear into the rest of it and get all the new equipment installed, move all the chemical feeds that they need to move, and then really get over to start up by February 2026, and then May 2026, looking at that final completion. But we should be making good or improving the water by February 2026. That's the target right now. That really takes into account all the electrical and equipment and longer lead times of some of those pieces of equipment. That's really why I pushed it a little further. So with that construction schedule, I'll go to any questions.
Council questions?
Mayor.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott, this is Jeff. You mentioned some contaminants. Do you know of, some contaminants with the, or the filtration, of the iron quality? I know manganese was the big deal out here. That's why this is picked in the west side of Otsego, plus radium. What do you see in type of filtration? How much contaminants will be filtered out with the setup that has been presented?
Our targets are approximately half of the, so the different contaminants, some of them are what's called maximum contaminant level. That's the enforceable standard. And then the iron would be a secondary contaminant level, which is more of an aesthetic issue. If you see the brown staining on any sidewalks, that's typically iron. If you see black staining, it's typically from manganese. And manganese also has a health advisory level. Each of those, so take each of those levels, our target is to be at approximately half of the allowable or target level. So I don't have it right off the top of my head what the percent removal is, but particularly on manganese, that it's a very high percentage removal basis to get down to the target of half of that health advisory threshold.
Thank you.
Scott, my question is, so you explained a little bit that you reached out to our top bidder, basically that one with the lowest, but Market and Johnson. But what cities have they worked in? I know you said they're from Wisconsin and they're trying to get into Minnesota market, but have they completed anything in Minnesota, or have they just started projects in Minnesota?
So on the public side, I would have to check and make sure I'm not missing something, but I do think, as far as I'm aware, this would be their first public project in Minnesota. Okay. So that is a consideration. They met the technical requirements in terms of previously building water plants, and they just generally, if you're talking about them, like a lot of their core work is also private industrial work. So it's actually very similar to the water plant, but they've also done water treatment facility work as well. So it just not so much within the borders of Minnesota.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions, council?
Mayor.
Yes.
Scott, I think I'm pretty sure I've asked you this question before, but just in case, We've kind of heard horror stories of cities that switch over to, cleaning their water, and then it sort of causes all these problems downstream. I think the benefit that we have is that we have newer pipes, so we're not too concerned about that. But is there an issue when we move to water filtration and cleaning that we may descale some of the pipes?
Yes, that's a risk that we need to be cognizant of. The one thing, well, one of the things that we've been doing from the aesthetic side is adding phosphate, and that it's also called corrosion inhibitor, and that really is I'll just say part of the game, part of the best practices when you do have iron and manganese that is not removed by filtration. We will, as we work to add additional filtration across the city, there's a couple different types of phosphate, and there's basically the one you use with when you don't have filtration. There's the one that you use when you do have filtration, and we'll be going through a transition period. Continuing to add that phosphate, the corrosion inhibitor, will be an important part of trying to avoid those issues with the legacy manganese release. So a combination with our flushing program, flushing the water distribution system to aggressively remove any of those sediments, basically out the side and not through the customer's taps. That'll be part of it, as well as the phosphate, continuing with the phosphate program that we've been on for basically the entire time that the city drinking water system has been operating.
Awesome. Thank you.
And Mayor, I have a quick
Yes.
confirmation. Hey, Scott, this is Tina. Quick question. You mentioned that this company is out of Eau Claire Market and Johnson, and this is going to be their first project in Minnesota. Now, is this their first project with a wastewater treatment plant or not?
This one is actually drinking water in a.
Sorry.
I mostly come in front of you with wastewater issues. This one happens to be drinking water. Sorry.
Sorry, yes, sorry.
No
Drinking
worries at all. Just wanted to make sure I clarify that. And part of the reason I said it that way is because I actually do not know their specific resume for wastewater. But they did meet our bidder qualifications for previous projects for drinking water treatment.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, a motion would be in order.
Mayor. I can make a motion.
Yes.
Motion to adopt resolution 2024-53, accepting bids and awarding contract to Market and Johnson Inc. of Eau Claire, Wisconsin for the Well House 4 Treatment Improvements Project in the amount of $6,840,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Jeff, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Continue motion, Mayor.
Yes.
Motion to approve Exhibit K, Amendment to Owner Engineering Agreement and Amendment Number 1, a professional services contract amendment in the amount of $702,500 with the Advanced Engineering and Environmental Services LLC.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, seconded by Ryan. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Good work.
Okay, moving.
Mayor, if I can add something.
Yes.
One thing exciting or very exciting about Well House 4 getting treated, as I mentioned before, with Ryan coming on, we've been working on this now for over a year and a half, or for myself, since I've been elected. I remember I came in to meet you guys in, I believe, 2020 to talk about our water filtration. And the reason why I bring that up is I remember talking to a city planner. I believe, was it the water master plan? The plan budgets for 3 and 4, was that from 2018 and 2020?
That would be the.
Excuse me, Ron, was that from
Engineer.
2018 or 2020?
That's correct.
Okay, reason why I bring that up is because I remember the budget, or at least the cost analysis, was about 3 million for 3 and 4. And I believe 9 million, correct me if I'm wrong, for 1 and 2. Does that sound fair?
Correct. At
And
that time. That's what we expected.
Right. And as you can see, this cost, thank you to staff for getting the grants and everything. As you can see, instead of 3 million, this cost higher than 6 million, thanks to inflation and whatnot. And the reason why I bring that up is because you see a lot of comments online, or at least, people we've talked to, look at our water, especially when the fire hydrants go. Well, this is for me, a brand new filter. People can see it nice and white. And this is from mine 2 days ago. And of course, it's not as wet, but it is still brown. And thanks to this, you won't see this as brown anymore, and it will be quite cleaner, which that's why I was asking him, Scott, about that. And bringing that up, the reason why I bring all this up was from our fire station and with funding. When it comes to funding like this, I know we have Well House 4 came in with grants, which is awesome. Councilmember Dunlap and I are on Public Works Subcommittee, which we're also working on Well House 3. And there's been some anomalies with 3, but we did get grants with that, not as much as for Well House 4, but we did get grants for it. But that one, there will be delays because there's some anomalies with spatial needs. But 1 and 2 will be coming up. And if those came in at 9 million 4 to 5 years ago, it probably will be well over 10, which probably means we'll be needing funds or grants or whatever, or excuse me, even loans from the same people we loan for business projects. And I remember Councilmember Dunlap brought up a very good point with when we were in EDA, that a council could very well, like the Vadnais Heights project, when they decided to put the kibosh on their sports complex, which basically, that would put a halt on anything. And then if we go for a loan for Well House 1 and 2, and of course, some will read earlier on, there's also more plans for the east-west connection with another pump house building. A lot of this funds, could be, I'm speculating, of course, but if it's over 9 million from 5 years ago, could be 12 to 15. Who knows? Again, I'm speculating. And then for that new building, could be more than that. So, as a politician, correct me when I'm wrong. If it's over 40 million for pump house 1 and 2, not including 3, which we are working on, and if there's a 5th coming in, that would be really scary. I mean, it was very brave for Ryan to bring that up. It's like, wow, if that ever happens, if future council ever defaulted on that firehouse, and then we have to go to these for all these water loans and whatnot, it would delay the east side water clarity. That's why when I brought up too with the west side, one big reason why this is getting done on the west side is because of that manganese. That manganese gets taken care of first. Then, of course, with the east-west water connection, all that cleaner water will go down the east side to help, but they still need to be cleansed and filtered and whatnot. With the projects that you saw how big that was. It's going to be unbelievable. But by the time we get this built, and then if we need money, and that's something ever happens in the long run, it was eye-opening. The comments that has been said here in the last council meetings and whatnot. So I just wanted to say that. Good job, staff, getting this going. Great job, council. This is very exciting. We're starting water treatment finally in one of our 4 treatment facilities, and it'll be, well, people will see up to a point when our fire hydrants get taken care of every half a year when we see that going, but a lot of this will be taken care of, and especially when you look at Kurt gave me numbers for what the city of Otsego used without, people with well water, of course, you're on your own when it comes to the numbers that I'm talking about, but the city of Otsego's used 375 million gallons this year so far out of our, I believe, 10 to 11 wells. So, people use their water, they expect it once they turn the water on, and it will be a little bit cloudy sometimes the way we have it right now, but, we are working on it. This is step 1. Excellent job, council, and excellent job, staff. Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to city council reports and updates. First, we'll start out with Heritage Preservation Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. HPC is working already on some new ideas for the Prairie Festival, so make sure you all stop and check that booth out. And that's really it. They're working on some projects.
Okay. Park and Rec Commission.
You will be happy to know that the HPC gave me a name for Ashwood Park, and the commissioners did vote. And so the current Ashwood Park will now be Friedrich Park. The Friedrich family has been here for quite some time, and they would be honored to have the park named after them. So very exciting news for them and for us, I guess, because
Yeah.
Nick's been waiting and waiting.
And we also, council was invited to that Lost Park and Rec
Yes, you-
Commission.
Yep. And there were Miss Tina Gady, we missed Tina Gady, but the rest of us were there for that. And again, just good feedback, I feel like, from the audience, and everyone was
in
there to
regards-
attend. Mhm.
Right, in regards to the Prairie Park Master.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, didn't you guys know that? That's what I was talking about.
I just, I knew what you were talking about, but I figured you should say it. Planning Commission, tonight, we just approved the quadriga, which is what you saw tonight, and we figured out how to say it. Next is Public Safety Commission, Tina.
I was gone.
I was, the Public Safety Commission was able to tour the North Star Regional Treatment Center, which was, it was a great tour. Staff was very friendly to show us the different elements to the treatment facility, both the short-term and long-term stay. We got to actually go into the buildings and talk to some of the residents there. And then we hosted our meeting just at the end of it, but on site there. So, thanks to staff who was present. Dan, the planner, came. We also had Daryl. The ambulance service was also, they were there. So
Really?
yeah, they toured it because it was their night to plan to attend. And so they toured that. And then Mo, I think actually all Public Safety Commission members were present.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Councilmember Dumlet was there, Councilmember Dahl was there, and I was there. So it was a nice tour. They
Yeah,
did
I
a
really
good
enjoyed
job.
it. Yep.
And able to answer a lot of questions. We get some comments just about people walking down the street on County Road 39 or 19 and just about safety factors to that. But once you kind of see that their program is to make sure that people are getting out into the community, they may be going to work in those areas that they're trying to walk to work. So they do have bikes that they're able to take there. Some of them obviously don't have transportation, so walking is means for them to get around. It's obviously not super close for them to be walking down at 19 to get to Quick Trip or something, but they've been working with local, I guess I could name the golf course where a few of them work there actually. So
Yeah, I think there was a couple other businesses they mentioned too. The thing that was surprising to me, the assumption that I had made is that, people go there for, detox and things like that. And that's not what that facility is at all. So I was surprised to learn that there's kind of two portions of the facility. And the first portion is sort of that's where they go immediately and they get their treatment. And that can last, I think, 4 to 6 weeks, somewhere around there, if I remember correctly. And then there's housing that they would go into for around 6 months. And those are the people that you might see, going out and working and being part of the community because they're trying to, adapt and be part of a community. So that was something that I learned that I was pretty surprised. I had made some assumptions about the facility that turned out to be pretty far off base. So I'm glad I went.
yeah, and it was good to hear just about their kind of whole approach to it, that to make sure that these men have housing in place, AA in place, and NA in place, all of those things for them, that they're able to go back in, and some of these men already have full-time jobs, so they may be gone during the day and come back at night, or they're there, but they're expected to, they have a curfew, they have to sign in and out, but they're not able to do that second stage, as Ryan was talking about, until they've moved on from the core treatment and they've moved into the other facility. But they have a lot of individual groups that they then run themselves at night. So there might not be staff running those groups, but they talked about nursing staff on site. So as Ryan said, I think that what we all might have thought was very different one after seeing what they have in place and then
Yeah.
talking with them and meeting with their staff. And they were very thankful for our visit and said, you know, maybe we should do this once a year. So yeah, great idea. Said great. So that was nice. Does anyone else have anything for city council reports and updates?
Could we maybe do the next tour next year, not on the same night as HPC?
Well, we tried to fit it in with the public safety since they're the ones who usually take
Yes.
and adhere of the complaint. So it was a good
Yes.
fit for them.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm partly teasing because I did,
Okay.
I mean, I would have gone obviously, but
Yeah.
we,
it
it
was
sounds
the
like
same
it was a
night.
great, yeah.
Yeah,
And
it
it,
was
but
the
it
same
sounds
night.
like it went really well.
If nothing else from council, moving on to staff reports and updates. Sabrina.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder, council was all invited to the ribbon cutting this Friday, so the 26th for Pet Supply Plus and Ace Hardware. So they'll be having the ribbon cutting starting at 2. I believe Pet Supply Plus is first, and then Ace is scheduled for 2:30. So I know a few of you have already RSVP'd, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Audra.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let everybody know absentee voting has been going on for the primary election. And starting this Friday will be direct balloting where a voter will be able to drop their ballot right into the DS-200. And that'll be available up until the day before elections. And then just to let everybody know that candidate filing for mayor and council will start Tuesday, July 30th, and will last for 2 weeks.
Perfect. Dave.
No, excuse me, no updates, thanks, man. Hadn't talked for a while.
All right, Dan,
Mayor, no updates.
Ron.
75th Street paved, if you.
Yes,
noticed, okay.
yep, noticed it. Good job.
Zockman Meadows grading is gonna be starting. That's that 80-acre parcel north and east of 70th Street and Cadler on the west side of town. You've seen the preliminary plat for that, and they're gonna be coming in with their final plat for the utilities and streets here fairly soon.
Okay.
The mill and overlay, that's starting this week, and info's being on the website for that. The signage will be placed along the streets when they do start. I'm telling you not to park on the street, 1, and 2, not to water on certain days, because that's when they'll be paving. But at no time will anyone not be able to get in and out of their house. It's as maybe some of the council members have gone through, a mill and overlay project moves on pretty quickly, and you always have pavement in front of your house. It just might be rough. Also the reconstruction project, that'll be starting in early August, and letters are going out this week to the residents. So everyone will be notified. And again, there'll be information provided on the city's website.
Okay, thank you. All right, if no one has anything else, then the motion to adjourn would be in order. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tina, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. The meeting is ended. Thank you all for attending.